Hi everyone, and welcome to Of Dice and Dinner, a podcast where we all play together some TTRPG actual play. In this case, our group is playing Seven Dooms for Sandpoint, a campaign or season we decided to call Red Sand Rising. My name is Charlie. I professionally am known by CheesyGMing. My pronouns are she, her, and I will be your GM for this Seven Dooms for Sandpoint adventure. A fun fact about me is that I like to paint when I get a chance to do so. And with me today are four fantastic people to play this adventure. Players, could you please take a moment to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Elias. I go by he, him. And one fun fact about me is that I used to be a competitive card game player for 3 years of my life.
Hello, I'm Faye, using she, her pronouns. My hobby is to collect more hobbies, and I'll be playing Sappho.
My name is Peter. I go by he, him, and I like to collect things from the forests. I'll be playing Tippler's Bane.
Hello, I'm Sylvia, also known as Sylvie, and I go by she, her. And the other side, I should share how much I like sparkles, since I even create sparkles for a living. And in this campaign, I will be playing Jiji.
And with introductions out of the way, I believe we can jump into our first episode of Seven Dooms for Sandpoint. In the small town of Sandpoint lives a group of friends. Though they come from different backgrounds and stories, they have grown to know and rely on each other, and slowly, this ragtag group of friends became Sandpoint's most reliable adventuring party. Some of their greatest successes were clearing an old manor in town from an unwelcomed Jinkin sorcerer, and his construct mimicking a Sandpoint devil, unraveling the scheme of an undead necromancer plotting to raid Sandpoint, and of course, their achievement in establishing relationships with the denizens of the new old Thessalonian dungeon. The heroic actions of our adventurers are no secret to Sandpoint. Perhaps that is why they were all summoned to a private lunch with Father Zantus, the religious leader of the cathedral. What could possibly await this group of special adventurers? We begin our session on a sunny day in the Cathedral of Sandpoint, where our heroes sit around a large table filled with food and drinks of many kinds, joined by Father Zantus, who welcomes you all with a soft smile. Who does Father Zantus see around the table?
To his right, he would see a fungus leshy. As for appearance, well, he's a Tippler's Bane. They are also sometimes called ink caps. So he has like this sort of beige-y color, and like around his head, which is really just his head, even though it looks like the typical wizard's hat, but it's actually part of his head. Like around the rim of it, there's like this purple brim that has like these drips hanging down, which sometimes ooze spores. And you know that when he gets angry, he also likes to get into a huff where he's like, and he puffs out these spores that sometimes seem intimidating to his foes. He's a bit like more on the stout end, not too tall. Nevertheless, he's actually still quite quick on his feet for his size. That's me.
Next to Tippler's Bane, you see a stout dwarf sitting there who seems to be putting a lot of importance on his appearance. Giovanni Bellarosa, the dwarf with long, luscious, flowing golden locks coming down from his head and a braided beard woven together with roses. He's wearing a long blue cloak decorated with floral patterns and expensive-looking leather boots and gloves. Giovanni is a dwarf kineticist, and that's all you're gonna find out for now.
Next to them, he will see Jiji, who is a goblin wizard, but in the world and mechanically as a dedication, she is also an alchemist. Like your typical goblin, she only stands around 3 feet tall, with light green skin and those typical glistening ruby red eyes. Her shoulder-length dark hair is messy, and Jiji keeps most of it tucked behind her floppy ears, apart from a strand on each side, one of which is bleached white in a testament to an experiment gone wrong. Her clothes are simple, but kept clean, despite the experiments, and the outfit is tied together using belts and rope and some fabric wraps. And you would also see lots of knickknacks on her, like herbs and potions, from both her arcane and alchemical studies.
And in contrast to the rest of the party, there's Sappho, an elven bard who usually only goes by the first part of her name, and she stands out due to the fact that she's far taller, about double the size of some of her friends. Sappho is looking overall lanky and fragile like many elves, which is even further emphasized by elongated fingers and the oh so very long pointy ears. She's a bit pale, like she spends too many hours poring over books and walking around libraries instead of running outside in the sun. And her long pastel pink hair is in a thick braid, and an onlooker might not be sure whether the messiness of it has been carefully sculpted or because she slept a night or two with it already. Sappho's large eyes have turned golden, a sign of how long she's been in Sandpoint already, and she's wearing light brown leather armor over some soft pink flowy shirt and finely embroidered light pants, and a book that reads A Collection of Contemporary Poetry is clutched between her fingers, and it looks like she tries to appear a bit smaller than she is.
In front of you all sits Abstalar Zantus, who is the father of this cathedral. Zantus is a older human, not old, still in their later years. You would all know that Father Zantus is a devoted follower of Desna, though they are open for the rest of the people who are believing in different kind of religion in Sandpoint. Father Zantus looks at you all and starts. I greet you, my friends. Thank you for joining me for this humble lunch here. Please eat, drink. Discussing could come later. You could all give me your first roll of the campaign by giving me a blind perception roll for sense motive. You guys being invited to have lunch with Abstalar Zantus is not surprising on its own, as you are a very well-known name in the city, and you are very much familiar with being helpful and assistive to other people. Most of you find this as a very easygoing time, sitting around this table. However, Giovanni, you do notice that Father Abstalar is tapping their finger on their knee just a tad too quickly to be a calm situation, as you realize they are holding something that makes them, though slightly, a little stressed.
Well, upon noticing that, I go, Father, you seem a bit bothered. How is one to relax and enjoy their food when you're being so nervous?
Giovanni!
You see it catches them a bit off guard.
Jiji is probably already digging into the food. It's like, what? Over the food?
Oh, don't you worry, Jiji. You just enjoy yourself.
It's really delicious. You should try this. Here.
You really should. You really should. All in due time. I promise. You're right. I have some things on mind, but a good way to have a good conversation is over a full stomach. And you see that they start eating and drinking a bit as well, though they are still noticeably nervous now to the rest of you as well, as they're trying to act as normal as they could while putting some food on their plate. You're clocking this not as fear, but definitely as their mind is preoccupied. Though they do insist on having a meal before you're having the conversation.
Ah, you're right, Father. It would be rude of us to decline such an invitation. And who wouldn't love to eat such beautifully made food? Did you make it yourself, Father?
Oh no, I wish. My acolytes in here helped me make this fantastic dish for you all. You take a while to eat lunch and have small talk, mostly because you see that Father Zantus is hoping to have small talk and not immediately jump into what they are having in mind. And after a while, you eat, you drink, conversation starts going down, plates start to become empty, and Zantus takes a deep breath and sighs slowly. I had a situation in mind that I wanted to bring up. You see, you could call it haunted by the past, if you may. Are you familiar with the history of Nualia from our town? I wouldn't be surprised if you're not. It's okay, but do you know what happened here years ago?
Would we know anything about this, or?
How long years ago?
You would absolutely know some of it. You probably were here actually when some of the things occurred, but never involvement directly. You would know the name easily, as Nualia is a name of someone who has been living in Sandpoint in the cathedral here before, and she was also a Nephilim. You would definitely know of that. The whole story, unlikely, as it was something that is most people are trying not to talk about in Sandpoint.
How long ago is that around?
17
Is
years
it just
ago.
17 years? Yeah, okay. So it's that event.
The events
'Cause
ended 17 years ago.
Goblins are a bit younger and like age differently, so Jiji would probably go, I'm a bit too young though. I've heard the name.
That I would know. Would you mind if I take a minute to explain the story of Nualia?
Oh no, feel free. And Sappho's just taking out one of her notebooks and a pen and is ready to like take notes of whatever
They give
Santa
you a
says.
nod, as in no problem at all. And they start explaining. Her tale begins when a foundling baby showed up on the stoop of the Sandpoint Cathedral. That was before my time. That was before I was here. That child would grow up to be a spirited young woman named Nualia. Her foster father, Ezakian Tobin, who was the previous religious leader here, was also Sandpoint's cathedral leader before. And as his adopted daughter grew older, it became apparent that she was more than human. Her appearance and grace bespoke of a supernatural heritage, but by the time she was 10, it was obvious that she was, in fact, a Nephilim. Her unearthly countenance made other children either jealous or shy, and many took playing cruel jokes on her as a child. And the adults in town weren't much better, as many viewed her as blessed by Desna and let their rural superstitions to take hold. There were rumors that Nualia's touch could cure warts and rashes, and that locks of her hair brewed into tea would increase fertility, and that her voice would drive out evil spirits led to a succession of awkward and humiliation requests come to her. And I would say that perhaps the worst of all was her father, Kazakian himself. He simultaneously took advantage of the upswell of religion favors triggered by Nualia's presence in town, which increased donations to the cathedral and kept her under curfew, meant to preserve her purity, so she could eventually join a prestigious convent in Andoran. Plan Zakian hoped would earn him more comfortable position in a much more civilized part of the world. But by the time Nualia turned 18, she felt more like a freak than anything else. When she met a man named Delek, who was manipulative to her, he began to woo her and she quickly fell in love with him. When he later abandoned her, after learning she'd become pregnant, Nualia tearfully turned to her foster father for support, only for him to overreact and forbid her from leaving the church so he could watch over her and lecture her into virtues he felt she should follow. This was not only the final step in Zakian's fall from grace, but also set into motion a series of events that would ultimately end in a tragic fire that burned much of the cathedral to the ground and left Zakian, Tobin, and Nualia dead. Or so the people of Sandpoint think. In fact, Nualia not only survived the fire, but was the one who started it. After living a life of loneliness and disappointment, and after enduring a birth of a monstrous child who lived only moments before dying, Nualia had come to believe that Lamashtu was the only solution. Lamashtu being, as you would know, the goddess, mother of monsters. Holy men and celestial ancestry has only brought her despair and pain, after all, and so she fell to the worship of the mother of monsters. In her dreams, Nualia envisioned a rebirth as a demon, but in order to achieve this freedom from her past, Lamashtu demanded a sacrifice. It was then that Nualia gathered several goblins and a handful of mercenaries to her cause and engineered a devastating attack on Sandpoint with the ultimate goal to offer the whole town as a burnt offering to Lamashtu, only for her plans to be foiled by a group of adventurers. Her death saved Sandpoint from devastation, but what few in Sandpoint truly realized was that they had contributed to the tragedy themselves. Had Nualia been treated well, things might have turned differently, both for her and the town itself. And that is what brings us to today. Over the past 17 years, I've done much thinking on poor Nualia, as she did not deserve the fate she got. I'm certainly not justifying her actions, but I wish it never came to that situation in the first place. That I came to town after the fire that took my precetor's life is no excuse. All of those who worship Desna would know better than to treat children of the world more kindly. My precetor failed to be a father figure in his part, and that caused Nualia's fall in a way. The people of Sandpoint were no help in the way they treated her, something less than a human, something fit only to soften their own fears or something to jealousy and coven. After her defeat, the least I could do was to see that she got a proper burial here in town, though some folks did not like that idea at all. But I'm glad that most of us were more understanding and forgiving. Only, I feel like it's not enough. Nualia needs to know we've forgiven her. She needs to know that I have forgiven her. She does not deserve an afterlife of torment. Her life was torment enough. I wish to find a way to connect to her spirit, ask for her forgiveness, and give her our own. That is why I called you all today.
But Father, how can we be of help in this situation?
Are you afraid that her spirit might be dangerous or like fighting you initially?
The calling of a spirit is a complicated ritual. Those who know how to make that ritual are few, though I am in luck to be in contact with one who does. I have a friend, a cleric, who I've spoken with about this ceremony, about this ritual. She was very inclined to help, and she is on her way here. Essentially, the ritual would bring us to connection with Noalia's spirit so we can converse once more, so we can ask for her forgiveness and give her ours. However, I have come across a problematic situation a little before that. In order for the ritual to succeed, we would need a physical link to Noalia's soul. It's been years, and any of her belongings are long gone now, which leaves us only her mortal remains. And as loath as I am to exhume her body, it was necessary for this ritual, to giving her my forgiveness. But when we opened her grave, we made an awful discovery. Her coffin was empty, and tunneled into it below was a tunnel that reached a lower cave underground. Nefer, the graveyard keeper, and myself were fortunate enough to escape without much harm, but this hole from her grave leads to a much larger tunnel, an underground area below the boneyard.
Sorry to interrupt you, Father, but are you saying someone dug up into her grave from below, from a cave system?
Or did she bury down below? Like, which direction was the hole?
From where it went, I believe it was dug from under the grave into it, and not from into the grave out.
Oh, good. Okay, good. That's good.
But yes, that is what I am saying. Something or someone dug from under the ground into Noalia's grave specifically, and took her bones away. Now, I myself am a man of the cloth, not an adventurer. That is where you come in. I would like to ask you to assist me by exploring those tunnels and finding Noalia's remains and bring them back, as they are essential for the ritual. But also, the fact that there are tunnels in the first place are extremely worrying.
Did they also connect to other graves or just Noalia's from below?
We did not stay long, but in the little that we stayed, it looked like there was only a single tunnel into a larger cavern. We didn't want to risk our lives too many times or too long. We did not know what's waiting out there, and we are not suited for this kind of work.
That is very fair. That's where we come in.
Of course, I do not ask you to do this for free. You would be paid, personally. 75 gold pieces per character. Per person, he would not say character. 75 gold pieces per person. Funds drawn from the church's upkeep to repair a budget. I believe this will suit here.
So, the larger cave structure, we can only access that through her grave, I assume? So...
It seems so.
Like, you fit through that hole. You said that you could look through? Okay, good.
Yes, it is. You would all be able to fit, I assume. It looked like a regular medium-sized creature crossed through, at least through the tunnel to Noalia's grave. The deeper we went, it did seem to go larger, but we made sure not to go into too much trouble and too much danger.
As long as we can all slide through. I mean, sorry, I might have gotten ahead of myself. Jiji, Giovanni, Tipplers, how are you all feeling about this?
Well, I guess we can have a look.
Yeah, also we've helped Zantus before, so this feels perfect. We got this. I mean, what could be down there, right? We've handled it first.
Well, undead for a start.
Yeah, but
then also
already
another
encountered them with
cult.
that necromancer. So.
Or
It's a giant mole.
weird monsters. Or
like...
You see Father Zantus raising their hand
Yes,
as if to
yes.
chime in. From the small marks we have seen there, both Nefer and myself, our initial hunch was ghouls.
Nah, told you. Undead.
At least. Exactly. That is what it would suggest to me. But they must have burrowed up from below to rob her grave, and also
But even find that location so
ghouls
specifically.
being that organized. Exactly.
I mean,
On its own, it's a worrying situation.
Yes. But, we can take a look, and don't worry, we've dealt with undead before. I think we can do it again. So...
oh, and Father, do you happen to have any suggestions against ghouls? Like, how we would best get rid if we were to encounter them?
Well, the most I could think of would be, I believe we can find some potions. Give me a moment. And you see them getting up and like rushing to one of the side rooms where they have like a storage area. And you start hearing shuffling of drawers opening and bottles clanking into each other as they start like taking things out and looking over there. And you hear them. And you hear them responding from the other room with sort of, found it. And they return with like a box, like a chest, an open-sided chest with a couple of potions inside of them. You will find quite the supply here, as they are going to give you 4 lesser healing potions, in addition to 4 lesser anti-plagues, and 2 salves of anti-plagues, followed with 6 vials of holy water. And they're going to put it on the table where they had the food before. I believe, as far as I'm aware of ghouls, well, undead or undead, so holy water is always a good thing to have, and they're putting it on the table. Let's see. Some healing potions is always good as a side thing. Anti-plague. I remember ghouls having some weird, I don't know, they have their weird abilities or weird diseases that they carry, and they place the anti-plagues on the table next to you, next to 2 salves of anti-paralysis. These might all come in handy. Take them for your journey. I am positive that if they are needed, you will have them.
These are excellent. And I look at all the like vials, potions. And I look at the
A lot.
I think the anti-plague, and I go, I think I can create some more of these here if we need them.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
And I guess I
shudder at the
towards the party.
thoughts. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, like distributing them to each person. But we can distribute them later.
As they start putting them on the table, one next to each of you.
So from the healing and the anti-plague, it's easy because we just each take one.
Wait, we can sell all of this stuff and make more money by selling it than the quest itself would pay.
If we have any over, we can always sell them. I whisper,
essentially.
not probably so that Father Zantus wouldn't hear.
Good idea.
You see, after they spread the items between the whole group, if you would kindly join me, I would gladly take you to talk to Nefer as well. They are the one who made the discovery as I asked them to reopen the grave. As you probably understand, there is a sensitivity in the map, as we would not want... They go silent for a moment. I believe not all people in Sandpoint will see kindly to what I'm trying to do here. And I ask for your discretion, at least until the deed is done. I believe myself that we do not lose anything as a society if we apologize to Noalia. But I do believe that as long as we don't, suffering is in place, especially for her in her afterlife. That is why I prefer, in a way, how people say, to apologize later and not ask for permission.
No point in opening old wounds, Father. If we can help this soul who has suffered enough to rest, then the task is reward enough for me.
They kind of give you a nod. Thank you
But
for your understanding.
we still kind of need to get paid anyway.
I mean, what Father Zantus offered is generous, so we'll happily take that.
Oh, Tipp, you're always so materialistic. What happened to doing a thing just for the cause itself?
Well, I like to be able to pay for my food.
You know what? That's a fair point. You can buy a lot of
Also,
beautiful
books are
food
very,
if you
very
have money.
expensive. Very
Good
expensive.
point indeed.
Yeah, and all kinds of potions, ingredients.
I absolutely ask for no charity here. You are requested for your abilities, and you will be compensated for them.
Do you have a time frame of when we should get out?
I would ask you to set out as soon as possible, as we do not know who took the bones, or more importantly, for what purpose. If it will be possible with you, I would like to take you to the boneyard the moment we finish here.
Should we
What time
wait
is it
until
today?
it's dark, Father, so we are not noticed by any of the citizens?
It is possible, but it will also might put you all in a disadvantage. Are you faring well in the darkness?
I mean, kind of.
Underground, it would be dark either way, no?
True.
But are you really suggesting we go to the graveyard in the dark? Do you know what kind of creatures lurk there? Do you know how dangerous that could be?
Ugly creatures, most likely. So our task is to make the place beautiful.
I see, and because we go in the dark, we can't see how ugly they are. You're genius.
Well, I can't say that this wasn't part of my suggestion. You kind of got me there.
Well, then, guess we have a plan.
Follow me, if you may. And they would start leading you from back doorways. The boneyard is right behind the cathedral. They are going to start leading you from the back doors to go from the less viewed paths to go to where you're supposed to find the grave. You would all know exactly where Noalia is buried, because this is a place that is very much marked as a little further away in the graveyard. So any one of you who has ever been to the graveyard before would just know that there is a section that is a bit less going towards, which is where you are walking towards now. As they lead you, you see a person standing next to a grave, as if kind of guarding. And you see from far away, they look at you and wave as they notice your approach. And you see Father Zantus waving back as they say to you, Vosk is already here. I'm glad to see that. You would all know Nafar Vosk as the Boneyard Keeper, a hunched-over human with a shriekly voice, kind of looks younger in their age from Father Zantus, for example, but also still going a little older in their age, somewhere between their 40s to their 50s. They have a small limp as they walk that you would know is talked about from having a long-lost injury in their leg. And they would wave to you from far away, holding a shovel in one hand and waving with the other. As you hear, I am very glad you can make it today. It's been making noises.
It? What is it?
The hole.
What kind of
It's
noises
been making
would
noises.
that be?
And clanking and some mumbling. I'm not quite sure, but definitely not regular quiet voices. We're making activity noises.
It's not good. No, not at all.
See, Abstalar responds, no, that is definitely... That seems quite bad. I would ask you to be careful when you go down there.
As much as I hate being a killjoy, I believe this activity has to be ended.
You see Vosk kind of nods their head. I would also like to not be keeping this grave for the whole day. People eventually will notice that I'm standing and not moving from a place. And you see Zantus is leaning their head by saying, yes, please, thank you for guarding the place, and please go back to your daily affairs. I asked too much of you already. And they kind of give you a nod with their head, and they start walking away as they keep saying, weird voices. There's something down there. And they start walking away from the grave. Father Zantus looks at you. I guess this is it. Would you need anyone to guard the entrance? I don't believe anyone would come after you if we just close or hide this place enough. But I believe keeping guard might attract some attention. So would you need someone to guard the place, or should we leave the place be for you to have the freedom of movement?
Guard. Do you?
Nah, maybe cover the hole with some branches and leaves so we can get out easily, but no one else sees it.
I'll put a fabric with some leaves on it.
Yes, that works.
I assume most, like the worst part, will be already down there anyway.
Here, take this one. And Giovanni pulls out a handkerchief, a hand-sewn handkerchief adorned with roses out of his coat, and hands it over to Abstalar.
That is beautiful, thank you.
It
Is
is.
that going to be big enough to cover the hole?
It is a big handkerchief.
He's a very snotty nose. Okay.
I'm gonna try to put it in the side of one of the fabrics to hold it better. I think she would like that. Either way, I must not delay you any further. I would be waiting in the cathedral for when you are done. Please come back from the back door as well. And thank you for your efforts.
Well, don't thank us now. We haven't done anything yet.
But we are about to.
They give you a small smile, like a side smile, as if half of it, with a little nod, and saying, well, sometimes thanks in advance is important.
You mean in case we don't come back, or?
Nah, we got this.
No, of course not. Just so you know, we support you and appreciate you. It's motivation.
Thank you, Father Zantus. and Jiji would give her signature big grin and wave him off with that. And it might look creepy to like outstanders because it shows all her sharp goblin teeth, but I mean the party knows it, and Father Santos would probably as well. So it's like a very cheerful big grin.
You see, they kind of take the hint, as in giving you another nod, and start making their way back to the cathedral.
Well, then we've got a hole to explore in the ground.
Alright, no time to waste. Let's get the ugly things out of the way as quick as possible. And with those words, Giovanni will just jump down the hole right away.
Giovanni goes first. Who goes next?
I would go next.
Tipp would go next.
I would go right after and be like, hey, don't you need a light or something?
Jiji would go right after, asking about light, followed by Sappho.
Yeah, Sappho will like carefully try to like climb down, and check out while going downstairs that there's nothing too scary happening down there.
You start making your way down this very long tunnel. It's not extremely long, it's not like hours, but definitely a few minutes go by as you start walking down. It goes in an angle, like very much in a deep angle. It goes down very quickly. And quite fast you reach darkness. As Jiji mentioned, it's quite dark there.
As it gets dark, I would like to cast light on either Tipp's or Giovanni's like item, weapon, whatever you like.
Yeah, I would hold out my hammer to cast it on that, and then I would hold the hammer up like a torch.
I mean, Tipp was right in front of me, so I would cast light on that.
As you walk down the tunnel, using a torch for lighting, you start seeing what they meant or mentioned by, they pretty much think it's ghouls. You start seeing some claw marks on the sides, and you start seeing some scraping marks that would stick to you with what you know about ghouls as well. They are very much physical creatures. They are very much moving not elegantly. Now, I would like to ask, what are the party's exploration activities here? Since you're having a torch, it might be a bit difficult to stealth your way in, but you can also do other things. So, what do you think each of you is doing as an exploration default option?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I say to the party, I can always dismiss the spell if you want to sneak up to something or not announce yourselves.
Well, for now, there's no immediate danger, or can I hear or see anything in the surroundings?
Give me a blind perception roll, please.
Blind roll.
You definitely hear some noises. Mostly it sounds a little bit like gibberish to you, but as you're getting a lot closer or a lot further down this tunnel, you hear some things that you would immediately know these are voices of creatures, of beings. And it sounds like there's quite a lot of them from what you can hear. It sounds like an assortment of creatures conversing between themselves.
Okay, so until we reach that point, I would leave the torch on, and the closer we get, the more I kind of try to keep it low and not as obvious, and not shine it like all the way down the tunnel. Is there any light coming from the voices, or is it all in darkness?
All in darkness.
Okay. Then I would still keep a safe distance where I would assume that they cannot see the torch, and then kind of reconvene with the party and say like, so how do we go about this?
Sappho would have while entering, just remembering, yes, she should be taking out her little wand and grab out of thin air a little booklet about undead, especially ghouls. Okay, what I've used is the wand of pocket library to get a little bit of help if I need to recall knowledge.
Giovanni will just keep an eye out on his surroundings and try to see if he can figure anything out, and just use investigate as a scouting or exploration activity.
I mean, for me, I would still like just see if the voices come closer, or if I can see any tracks that give me more information about numbers, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Jiji?
I'd keep a general eye out, like looking for traps and other dangerous things in the surrounding cave. I mean, since Tipp heard the enemies, I would trust him with that and look for anything else that like might be dangerous or ambushes. Also, I just realized that the light spell works a bit differently, coming from as a D&D player to Pathfinder. Here it's a small orb that floats next to you. That's not an item.
Ah, yes. Still, you can have it in an area next to.
But like it follows the
someone,
creature, but it's
that would
hard to
work.
like keep it low, right? Like a hammer, you could hide behind your jacket or something, while
Yes.
the orb just floats next to the creature. So I could either just dismiss it
It
completely,
needs to be fully
or
covered.
So, seeing as the path gets pretty narrow around here, Tipp, do you wanna take the first position here so you can smash stuff as it comes up?
Sure thing. Go ahead. Also take out the fork in my second hand, just being ready to fight whatever comes our way.
Oh yeah, probably also unsheath my
Basically
dagger.
preparing to encounter what is coming in front.
Yeah, essentially, like be battle ready, just in case we do get jumped, or in case we need to jump something, and just be on my guard. I would actually also raise my weapons in a defensive position, sort of. Like, I guess the main gouge, the fork, I can raise like a shield. So I would have that already done in case we get jumped, and then I'm a bit more protected that way.
And that way, defending would be instead of you trying to gather up some more.
I mean,
things.
the tracks I would look at first. I guess, because that's like an individual role, I think, right? And then beyond that, like once we move ahead, I would have my fork raised to defend as we walk. But first, I would like try and discern from the tracks how many there are and what type of creatures, if it's all the same type of creature or if it's different types of creatures.
You can give me a blind survival roll, please.
Sure.
Because you're trying to clock the tracks a little more. After walking for just a few minutes, you hear the voices getting louder and louder, which indicates to you that this would be a good time to turn off your torch, or you might be spotted if you go a little bit further.
And I'll
Yeah, I
dismiss
turn
the spell.
to Jiji and ask her to do that.
You would see turning off the lights. It sounds very much conversation is happening, but in a language that none of you understands. As you're looking around on the tracks, you definitely see multiple tracks and different shapes as well, which would indicate to you not one single type of creature. Numbers are a bit confusing because they seem to walk around either in circles or back and forth. They seem to move around quite a lot. So it could be a small group, it could be a larger group. It doesn't seem to be by the dozens, but it definitely seems to be to you like it's more than 2 or 3 creatures.
Can I tell what type of creatures these are by the tracks?
These would be regular humanoid tracks, so general humanoid is not completely obvious to know which type of
Okay.
humanoid it's going to be.
Did we encounter any branches so far?
Have you encountered any what?
Like, is it just one path? Are there like sideways paths branching off corners?
So far, only one path, but you can see where you're standing. It goes a little further in, and it seems to open up, like Father Zantus said, that you're going to go through this tunnel that will open up to quite a bigger area. So you would know that right in the end of where the tunnel that you're hiding in is, would be where it opens up to maybe more. You don't know if it branches up to a lot of areas, but so far it has not been.
All right, then I would go ahead in the front, as I said, and even without the torch, as I have dark vision, would still be fairly confident in my steps.
Is any of you trying to avoid notice, or are you walking and trying to be defending, or something else?
Now that we're getting closer, I try to be quiet.
Yeah, actually, as well.
Is Tippler avoiding notice or defending?
Probably avoiding notice for now.
All right, you can move yourselves. You start walking a bit slowly. Please, everyone, give me a stealth roll if you are all avoiding notice. Blind, please.
The voices sounded a little creepy or weird.
Yeah.
You're all avoiding notice. Taking one step at a time, the voices get louder. It sounds like gibberish. The rambling is quick and sharp, and the words make no sense as they are not in any language that any of you understands, but they sound very mouthy words, throaty words, long vowels, as you can hear it almost ringing when you hear a conversation basically getting a hold. As you're making your progress in the small tunnel, you all hear a large as Tipp, you reach all the way down to the opening. Right where you are going to step off, and you look down and you see a small bone that broke under your leg. In front of you, a large group of what looks to be goblin humanoids all turn towards you with swords drawn and eyes locked as they all start making noises. And we're gonna roll initiative in our next episode. That is all for our first and exciting and lore-heavy session here for 7 Dunes from Sandpoint. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time as our party of heroes are going to combat whatever these small things are.
Cool goblins.
Bye bye.
Cool.
Cool
All
goblins.
right. See you then.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
See you then.
Red Sun Rising is made by Of Dice and Dinner, produced under the Paizo Incorporated Community Use Policy. Red Sun Rising uses trademarks and or copyrights owned by Paizo Inc., used under Paizo's fan content policy at paizo.com/licenses/fan content. Red Sun Rising is not published, endorsed, or specifically approved by Paizo. For more information about Paizo Inc. and Paizo products, visit paizo.com. Original characters and content are the property of Dice and Dinner. Our podcast intro-outro theme is made by Frieda, Melando, and Shachar Bieber. Of Dice and Dinner is happy to be in touch, and our email is the best way to do so. That's ofdiceanddinnerpodcast@gmail.com.